You're watching because you need a firewall that won't quit on you the moment traffic spikes, a device that quietly keeps the whole network alive while you focus on the business, and something that actually justifies the price tag instead of being a shelf-looking gadget. I get that hesitation. Spending on a second box that only activates when the first one fails feels risky, especially when you're already juggling licenses, VPN users, and a growing list of remote sites. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's walk through why the SonicWall NSa2700 high availability unit might be the safety net you need, and when it's just extra weight. First, the concept of a high availability HA pair is simple on paper: 2 firewalls, one live, one on standby, ready to take over in a heartbeat if the primary loses power, crashes, or even just needs a firmware reboot. In the real world, however, the devil is in the deployment steps and the day-to-day management. The NSa2700 HA unit is not a standalone firewall. It's a secondary appliance that hooks directly to an existing SonicWall NSa2700 or compatible primary. That means you already have a SonicWall infrastructure, you've invested in the Capture ATP sandboxing, and you're comfortable with the SonicWall Management (NSM) console. If that sounds like you, the HA unit slots in as a just-in-case partner that mirrors the primary's configuration automatically. The biggest practical strength here is the seamless failover. In a test environment I set up for a regional law firm, the primary NSa2700 handled all inbound client portals, file transfers, and encrypted video conferences. When we simulated a power loss on the primary rack, the HA unit took over in less than a second. No dropped VPN tunnels, no user prompts, and the firm's case management software kept syncing as if nothing happened. That kind of continuity is priceless when you're dealing with time-sensitive data and compliance deadlines. The built-in Capture ATP sandboxing also moves over, so the secondary firewall continues to block ransomware and zero-day threats without a hiccup. Connectivity flexibility is another point that often gets buried under the hype. The NSa2700 HA model offers a mix of 1 GBE and 10 GBE SFP plus ports, which means you can mirror the exact port layout of your primary unit, whether you're linking to a core switch, a 10 gigabits uplink to a data center, or multiple ISP feeds for load balancing. In practice, a retail chain I consulted for used the 10 GBE SFC plus ports to tie both firewalls into a redundant pair of aggregation switches. When one ISP went down, the HA unit didn't just keep the internet alive, it also kept the point-of-sale systems talking to the back-office inventory server, preventing those dreaded offline checkout messages during a busy Saturday. Zero-touch provisioning and centralized management through NSM are not just buzzwords. They shave hours off what would otherwise be a manual, error-prone process. Once you import the HA license, the secondary unit pulls its configuration from the primary over the dedicated HA link, applies the same security policies, VPN settings, and even the same Capture ATP signatures. For a managed service provider juggling dozens of sites, that means you can roll out a new HA pair in under an hour, instead of spending a full day per site. The NSM console also gives you a single pane of glass for health monitoring. Alerts pop up the moment the primary drops, and you can trigger a manual switchover if you need to do maintenance without pulling the plug. Now, let's be honest about the trade-offs. The biggest one is cost. Because this is a secondary unit, you're essentially buying a second firewall at full price, plus an HA license. For a small office with 10 users and a single internet line, that's a hard sell. You could achieve good enough uptime with a modest UPS and a regular backup configuration. The NSa2700 HA is really built for environments where downtime translates directly into lost revenue or regulatory penalties. Think healthcare clinics, financial services, or any enterprise where a 5-minute outage is a headline. Complexity is the second hidden cost. Setting up HA isn't just plugging cables and turning on power. You have to configure the HA pair, define the failover criteria, link health, CPU load, etc., and test the switchover scenarios. If you're new to SonicWall, the learning curve can be steep, especially when you add capture ATP policies into the mix. The NSM console helps, but you'll still need to allocate time for staff training or bring in a consultant for the initial rollout. Skipping that step often leads to a works-in-theory setup that fails under real traffic spikes. Another subtle limitation is vendor lock-in. The HA unit talks only to SonicWall firewalls. If your future roadmap includes a migration to a different firewall vendor, you'll be left with a perfectly good piece of hardware that can't be repurposed as a standalone device. That's not a deal breaker if you're committed to SonicWall for the long haul, but it's a factor to weigh if you're still evaluating multiple vendors. So, who should walk away with a purchase? If you run a mid-size to large